Let me tell you a truth. Most people never admit out loud. Life doesn't get tough because you're weak. Life gets tough because you're being prepared for a version of yourself you haven't met yet. I once met a man who told me, I lost everything in 1 year, my job, my home, my closest friend. But that same year, I found myself. That sentence hit me like lightning, because sometimes life breaks you, only to rebuild you with materials stronger than before. So if you're going through a storm right now, listen closely. This is not the end of your story. This is the chapter that will make everything that follows meaningful. Now I'm about to share 7 powerful points that will help you stay positive even in the toughest of times. The first key point is that pain is a signal, not a sentence. And this truth becomes clearer when you stop treating discomfort as an enemy and start seeing it as life's way of trying to get your attention. Most people run from pain, hide from it, or label it as failure. But pain is far more intelligent than we give it credit for. It does not arrive randomly, it arrives with a message. It arrives at the exact moment you've outgrown an old version of yourself, but haven't yet embraced the new one. When something hurts, it's often because life is shifting you, stretching you, or shaking something loose that no longer aligns with who you are becoming. Instead of saying, this shouldn't be happening, the real question becomes, what is this trying to teach me? Pain only becomes unbearable when we resist the lesson it brings. When you truly understand pain as a signal, you stop personalizing every setback. You stop believing difficult moments mean you're unlucky, unworthy, or incapable. Instead, you begin to see patterns, moments where life nudged you, warned you, prepared you. Think about how your body uses pain. You touch a hot stove and instantly pull back because the pain teaches you protection. Emotional pain works the same way. It pushes you away from toxic people, unfulfilling habits, unrealistic expectations, or stagnant situations that you've tolerated for too long. Pain is not trying to break your spirit. It's trying to break your attachment to the things that hold you back. Once you realize this, positivity becomes easier, not because circumstances improve instantly, but because your understanding deepens. Too often, people misinterpret pain as final. They see heartbreak as the end of love, failure as the end of opportunity, rejection as the end of possibility. But pain rarely closes doors. It reveals the wrong ones. It redirects your steps towards something more aligned with your values, talents, and future. Some of the greatest transformations in people's lives happen right after the most painful moments. The loss that felt unbearable becomes the turning point that shaped their strength. The setback that felt humiliating becomes the foundation for resilience. When you stop treating pain as a permanent judgment and start seeing it as temporary guidance, you free yourself from the emotional weight that makes staying positive feel impossible. Another powerful shift is recognizing that pain often exposes your blind spots, areas where you needed clarity but were too comfortable to confront the truth. When life is going smoothly, we effortlessly tolerate routines, relationships, or mindsets that aren't good for us. It's the tough moments that force us to pay attention. Pain shines a spotlight on what's unsustainable. It reveals what you've ignored. It shows you where you've compromised your peace, your boundaries, or your self-worth. And while that realization can be uncomfortable, it's also incredibly liberating. Because once you see the truth, you cannot unsee it. And that insight becomes the seed of growth. Positivity during tough times doesn't come from pretending the pain isn't real. It comes from reframing what the pain represents. When you look at it as guidance, every painful moment becomes less threatening. It becomes less of an attack and more of an invitation to rise, to adapt, to evolve. You begin to understand that the moments you feared the most were the moments that shaped your character the most. The pain you thought would destroy you is the same pain that strengthened your courage, sharpened your clarity, and deepened your emotional intelligence. Ultimately, staying positive when life gets tough is not about eliminating pain, it's about interpreting it correctly. Once you start viewing pain as a messenger, not a monster, you'll notice something remarkable. Your mindset shifts from, "Why is this happening to me?" to, "What is life trying to show me right now?" That single shift transforms pain from something that controls you into something that empowers you. And when you reach that stage, positivity no longer feels like a forced smile. It becomes a natural reaction to understanding your own journey on a deeper level. The second key point is that protecting your inner conversation is one of the most powerful forms of self-defense you will ever practice, because the world outside does not shape you nearly as deeply as the world inside your own head. Most people underestimate how much damage their internal dialogue quietly causes. They speak to themselves in tones they would never use with a friend. They criticize themselves for mistakes that are completely human. They replay worst-case scenarios until anxiety becomes their default setting. The truth is, the words you whisper to yourself every day become the script your life starts to follow. If the voice in your mind is harsh, negative, doubtful, or unforgiving, it becomes nearly impossible to stay positive when life gets heavy. Your inner voice must be trained, strengthened, and disciplined, because if you don't guide it, it will guide you, often in the wrong direction. Your inner conversation becomes even more significant during tough times because challenges amplify whatever story you tell yourself. If something goes wrong and your internal voice immediately says, "See, nothing ever works for me," you deepen the crisis. But if your mind responds with, "This is hard, but I can navigate it," you shift the emotional weight. That single shift changes how you act, how you feel, and how you show up. Your thoughts are not passive, they are instructions. The moment your inner voice labels you as incapable, your energy drops. The moment it reminds you that you're resilient, your strength rises. Staying positive in difficult moments isn't about pretending everything is fine. It's about choosing a narrative that supports your ability to move forward instead of one that keeps you stuck where you are. Many people don't realize that their inner critic didn't appear out of nowhere. It was shaped by old experiences, old fears, old wounds, and old expectations that no longer deserve authority in the present. Some of the negative thoughts people hold didn't even start with them. They were inherited from others who projected their own insecurities. But thoughts are not facts, they are habits. And like any habit, they can be unlearned and replaced. The moment you start challenging the voice that tells you you're not enough, you weaken its influence. The moment you respond to doubt with even the smallest amount of self-belief, you create a new mental pattern. Your inner voice can become your greatest enemy or your most powerful ally. Its role depends entirely on how consciously you manage it. Rewiring your inner conversation requires attention. It requires noticing when your mind drifts toward worst-case thinking, exaggeration, or self-blame. It requires interrupting those patterns before they grow roots. You don't have to replace negative thoughts with unrealistic positivity. You simply have to replace them with truth. Instead of saying, "I always mess up," say, "I'm learning and getting better." Instead of saying, "Nothing ever works out," say, "This is a setback, not a disaster." Instead of saying, "I can't handle this," say, "I can take the next step." Small shifts in language create huge shifts in perspective. Your mind listens to everything you say. It takes your words literally. So your responsibility is to make sure the words you feed it build you instead of breaking you. Another powerful aspect of protecting your inner conversation is understanding the difference between thinking and overthinking. Thinking helps you solve problems, overthinking magnifies them. Thinking creates clarity, overthinking creates chaos. During tough times, the mind loves to replay scenarios, rehearse fears, and invent outcomes that have not and may never exist. This mental spiral drains your energy and makes positivity feel impossible. The way out is not to stop thinking altogether, but to direct your thoughts intentionally. Ask yourself, is this thought helping me or hurting me? If it's hurting you, you don't have to engage with it. You don't have to believe every thought that appears. You have the power to choose which thoughts deserve space and which ones need to be dismissed. In the end, protecting your inner conversation is the foundation of emotional strength. Your mindset shapes your mood, your resilience, your ability to rise after setbacks, and your belief in your own potential. When life gets tough, the world outside may challenge you, but it's the world inside that determines whether you bend or whether you break. If your inner voice speaks with encouragement, clarity, and self-respect, positivity becomes more than just a coping mechanism. It becomes a natural expression of a mind aligned with strength instead of fear. The third key point is that shifting from why me to what now is one of the greatest mental transformations a person can make when life tests them, because those two questions produce entirely different emotional outcomes. Why me freezes you. It traps you in confusion, self-pity, and frustration. It pulls your attention backward toward the pain, the loss, the unfairness. But what now does the opposite. It pulls your attention forward. It activates your problem-solving abilities, your courage, and your sense of responsibility. The moment you switch those two words, your energy changes, your posture changes, your mindset shifts from victimhood to leadership. You stop staring at the wound and start looking for the path. And when life gets hard, the path is what you need, not the explanation. When people go through struggle, the instinctive reaction is to search for reasons. We want to know why things happened the way they did, why life didn't go according to plan, why people disappointed us, why opportunities slipped away. But the truth is that even if you found the perfect explanation, it wouldn't change the reality you're in. Explanations don't heal heartbreaks, rebuild careers, or restore confidence. Movement does, decisions do, action does. What now is the question that introduces movement. It takes you out of emotional paralysis and puts your hands back on the steering wheel. This shift doesn't invalidate your pain, it simply refuses to let the pain dictate your next move. Another important layer to this is understanding that why me focuses on blame while what now focuses on growth. When you live in the why me mindset too long, you begin to take life's challenges personally. You start thinking you're cursed, unlucky, or singled out. But hardship isn't personal, it's universal. Everyone experiences heartbreak, loss, disappointment, and failure in some form. The difference between people who rise and those who remain stuck is not the severity of the struggle, it's the story they tell themselves about it. What now replaces blame with curiosity. Instead of asking why life is happening to you, you ask how you can respond in a way that strengthens you. You stop digging deeper into the wound and start building the mindset that carries you out of it. This shift also frees you from the draining cycle of overthinking. When something painful happens, the mind loves to replay the moment over and over. What you should have said, what you should have done, how things could have gone differently. This creates emotional exhaustion, not progress. What now interrupts that loop. It pulls your focus toward the next actionable step, no matter how small. Maybe it's making a phone call, or adjusting one habit, or removing one unhealthy influence, or simply deciding to get up and keep going. Progress doesn't always require a massive leap. Sometimes the smallest step taken in the right direction immediately weakens the grip of negativity. What now reminds you that you don't need to solve your entire life in one moment. You just need to start moving. A powerful effect of embracing what now is that it builds resilience. Every time you choose action over self-pity, you strengthen the part of yourself that believes you can handle what life puts in front of you. You develop confidence, not from comfort, but from capability. The more you practice responding instead of complaining, the more you trust yourself. And that self-trust becomes a shield. It allows you to face future challenges without spiraling into fear or hopelessness. You realize you are not defined by what happens to you. You are defined by how you rise from it. What now becomes a habit, a mindset, a default response that gradually transforms you into someone life cannot easily break. Ultimately, choosing what now is not about pretending everything is fine. It's about refusing to let circumstances control your identity. You acknowledge the pain, but you don't give it your power. You accept the past, but you don't let it dictate your future. You recognize that the moment you decide to move, even emotionally, mentally, or spiritually, you begin rewriting the story. Every chapter of growth begins with a single decision. And what now is that decision? It is the question that opens the door from hardship to transformation, from confusion to clarity, and from stagnation to strength. The fourth key point is that detaching from the outcome and committing to the process is one of the most liberating and powerful ways to stay positive when life feels unpredictable. Because so much of your stress comes from trying to control things that were never in your control to begin with. Most people live with an invisible pressure on their shoulders. The pressure to make every plan work exactly as imagined, to make every effort produce immediate results, to ensure that every decision leads to success. But life doesn't move in straight lines. It unfolds in rhythms, seasons, unexpected turns, and unseen opportunities. When you fixate on a specific outcome, you trap yourself inside a narrow expectation. You measure your worth by results. You attach your happiness to timelines. You mistake delays for failures. But when you shift your attention to the process, your effort, your discipline, your consistency, you release yourself from that emotional tension. You allow life to unfold without feeling defeated. Every time something goes differently than planned, detaching from outcomes does not mean lowering your standards or giving up your dreams. It means understanding the reality that outcomes are influenced by countless variables: timing, environment, people's decisions, market shifts, opportunities you can't foresee. You can control none of that. What you can control is the quality of your effort. You can control your learning, your attitude, your preparation, your habits, your patience. When you commit to the process, you build a foundation that success can grow from. And even if things don't happen immediately, you don't spiral into frustration because your identity is no longer tied to results. You measure progress by growth, not by arrival. You evaluate your day by what you gave, not just what you got. This mindset makes positivity possible, even when outcomes take longer than expected. Another important insight in this key point is recognizing how attachment to results often creates emotional turbulence. When you cling tightly to an outcome, you start imagining every possibility where it might fall apart. You become anxious about scenarios that haven't even happened. You start working from fear instead of passion. The process begins to feel heavy, pressured, and stressful. But when you detach, you breathe again. You do your best without being suffocated by expectations. You work from a place of curiosity, not perfectionism. You allow space for mistakes without seeing them as proof that you're failing. Paradoxically, people who detach from outcomes often perform better because they're not constantly wrestling with fear. They're fully present in the work itself, and presence always produces better results than panic. Committing to the process also teaches discipline in a world obsessed with instant gratification. We live in a culture where people want transformation overnight, quick success, immediate recognition, fast results. But meaningful change rarely happens that way. Growth takes time, skill takes repetition, confidence takes experience, healing takes patience. When you focus on the process, you embrace the slow, steady path instead of the shortcut that promises speed but rarely delivers sustainability. You understand that each small step compounds, each day of effort matters, and each improvement builds towards something bigger. This mindset not only makes progress inevitable, it makes positivity sustainable. You no longer feel discouraged by how far you still have to go. You feel proud of how far you've come. Another powerful aspect of this shift is the freedom it gives you from the opinions of others. When you attach your worth to results, you become vulnerable to people's judgments. If you succeed, you feel validated. If you hit a delay, you feel embarrassed or insecure. But when you commit to the process, external opinions lose their control. You understand that people see the outcome but rarely witness the journey. You stop seeking approval and start seeking mastery. You stop worrying about who notices your progress and start focusing on making progress regardless of who's watching. And when your self-esteem is built on effort rather than applause, staying positive becomes far easier, even when your success is still unfolding behind the scenes. Ultimately, choosing process over outcome builds inner stability. It creates a calmness that isn't shaken every time life shifts direction. Instead of feeling defeated when a plan changes, you adapt. Instead of feeling lost when a door closes, you look for the next one. Instead of seeing delays as signs that you're failing, you see them as part of the journey. This mindset frees you from the emotional roller coaster of expectations. You still dream big, you still work hard, but you no longer collapse under the weight of timelines. Your positivity becomes anchored in who you're becoming through the process, not just what you're trying to achieve at the end of it. The fifth key point is that surrounding yourself with people who expand you rather than exhaust you is one of the most underrated strategies for staying positive during life's toughest seasons, because the emotional climate of your environment influences you long before you realize it. Most people assume their mindset is shaped solely by their own thoughts, but the truth is, it's shaped heavily by the voices they hear daily. Some people drain your energy without saying a single negative word. Simply being around them feels heavy. Others uplift you with their presence, inspiring you to aim higher, think clearer, and believe deeper. The people in your life act as emotional mirrors. They either reflect your potential back to you or reflect your fears. When life is already difficult, the wrong people magnify the struggle, while the right people help you navigate through it with strength. One of the biggest mistakes people make is assuming they can stay positive in a negative environment. But even the strongest mind can be worn down by constant criticism, doubt, gossip, jealousy, or pessimism. Negative energy is contagious. It spreads quickly and subtly. If you share your dream with someone small-minded, they shrink it. If you share your struggle with someone unempathetic, they minimize it. The wrong circle will make you second-guess your abilities, question your direction, and doubt your resilience. But when you surround yourself with people who expand you, they don't just listen, they strengthen you. They help you break out of your mental limits. They challenge you to grow. They remind you of your value when you momentarily forget it. These are the people who make positivity feel like a natural state, not a forced effort. Another important truth is that not everyone in your life has the emotional capacity to support your growth. Some people are more attached to the older version of you because it makes them feel comfortable. When you evolve, they resist it. Not because you're doing something wrong, but because your growth exposes their stagnation. These people may not be intentionally harmful, but their presence limits your progress. It's not that you need to cut everyone off. It's that you need to become aware of who energizes you and who drains you. Growth requires space, and sometimes that space comes from adjusting your proximity to certain individuals. Your peace is too valuable to hand over to people who don't know how to protect it. Surrounding yourself with the right people isn't just about avoiding negativity. It's about choosing relationships that pull the best out of you. The right people push you to keep going when you feel like quitting. They celebrate your wins without jealousy. They listen without judgment. They challenge your excuses but never shame your struggles. They believe in your potential even when your circumstances make it hard to see. They're the ones who say, "You've got this," not because everything is perfect, but because they recognize the strength within you. These relationships aren't transactional, they're transformational. They elevate your mental state and make positivity more accessible. Even during life's toughest storms, it's also important to understand that you become like the people you spend the most time with. Their habits influence yours. Their mindset shapes yours. Their outlook colors yours. If you surround yourself with people who constantly complain, you'll start complaining. If you surround yourself with people who focus on growth, you'll start growing. Humans subconsciously mirror the emotional and psychological patterns of their circle. So if you want to stay positive when life gets tough, you must intentionally place yourself around people whose lifestyles and attitudes align with the person you want to become. Positivity becomes easier when it's supported by a community of people who live it, embody it, and practice it. In the end, your environment is either your anchor or your oxygen. It either weighs you down or helps you rise. The company you keep becomes the background music of your life, either calming or chaotic, empowering or draining. When you intentionally choose people who expand your spirit instead of exhausting it, you create a support system that strengthens your emotional resilience. And in life's toughest moments, the strength of your circle often determines the strength of your mindset. The sixth key point is that focusing on what you have instead of what you lost is a powerful shift that can completely transform your emotional reality, especially when life hits hard. Loss has a way of dominating your attention. It pulls your mind toward the empty spaces, the missing pieces, the broken expectations. It's human nature to fixate on what slipped away, because loss triggers a sense of fear and vulnerability. But when you center your thoughts only on what's gone, you unintentionally shrink your ability to move forward. Your world feels smaller, your options feel fewer, and your future feels dimmer. Focusing on what remains doesn't erase the pain, it simply prevents the pain from becoming the entire story. It allows you to rediscover strength, resources, relationships, and qualities that still exist within your reach, even in the midst of difficulty. People often underestimate how selective the mind becomes after experiencing loss. When something important disappears, whether it's a relationship, an opportunity, a dream, or a sense of stability, the mind gravitates towards scarcity. It starts saying things like, "Nothing is left, everything is falling apart," or "I have nothing to work with anymore." But this is rarely the truth. Loss may take something, but it never takes everything. You still carry skills, memories, wisdom, resilience, and possibilities. You still have moments of peace, moments of clarity, moments of connection waiting for you. When you consciously shift your attention, even slightly, toward what remains, you begin to rebuild a sense of stability. You start realizing that your life still has foundations, maybe shaken, maybe changed, but not erased. Another profound aspect of this principle is understanding that loss often magnifies your blessings by making you more aware of them. When everything is going smoothly, people take their stability for granted. They don't notice small joys, consistent routines, or the people who show up quietly and faithfully. But when life gets tough, the smallest things start to matter more. A friend who checks on you, a moment of rest, a reminder of your own progress. These things become anchors. Focusing on what you have isn't about ignoring the pain of what you lost. It's about allowing gratitude to balance the emotional scale. Pain will always pull one side down, but gratitude lifts the other side up. That balance is where positivity has space to exist. It's also important to recognize that focusing on what you have strengthens your identity. Loss challenges how you see yourself. It makes you question your worth, your capabilities, and your direction. When you shift your attention to what remains, you're reminding yourself of everything life couldn't take from you. You still have a mind capable of learning, a heart capable of healing, and a spirit capable of rising. You still have the ability to make choices, to take steps, to reshape your direction. Your identity is not defined by what left, it's defined by what stays, and even more by what you choose to rebuild. This mindset protects you from falling into the trap of believing you are broken beyond repair. Another powerful part of this key point is that focusing on what remains helps restore momentum. Loss slows people down. It creates emotional fatigue and mental hesitation. You feel stuck because the mind attempts to understand the past before moving toward the future. But by shifting your attention to the tools, strengths, and opportunities you still have, you reignite your ability to move. You start saying, "This is where I am, and this is what I can still do." Even if the steps are small, small steps create direction. They build confidence. They remind you that forward movement is possible, even when everything feels uncertain. Momentum doesn't require perfect conditions. It requires awareness of the resources that still belong to you. Ultimately, keeping your focus on what you have doesn't mean pretending the loss didn't affect you. It means refusing to let loss define the entire landscape of your life. It means acknowledging that even after the hardest chapters, life still offers gifts, new relationships, new perspectives, new strengths, new possibilities. It means choosing to see your life not as an empty room, but as a space that still has light, warmth, and potential. When you look closely, you realize that loss didn't leave you empty, it left you different. And within that difference lies the possibility of growth, renewal, and a future that may hold more than you ever expected. The seventh key point is about embracing your individuality and refusing to shrink yourself just to fit into someone else's version of who you should be. In a world that constantly pushes labels, expectations, and comparisons, choosing to stand firmly in your identity becomes a powerful act of courage. Many people spend their lives trying to modify their personality, their voice, their dreams, or even their values simply to be accepted in circles that were never meant for them. But when you understand that your uniqueness isn't a weakness but a signature, something no one else can duplicate, you begin to carry yourself differently. You stop asking for permission to be yourself. You stop apologizing for taking up space. And every time you choose authenticity over conformity, you strengthen the foundation of the life you truly want to build. As you grow, you'll realize that the pressure to conform often comes from environments that thrive on sameness. These spaces don't know what to do with someone who thinks differently, speaks differently, or moves at their own pace. But here's the truth. Greatness has never come from blending in. Every innovator, every leader, every disruptor stood out long before the world celebrated them. They were mocked before they were praised, doubted before they were believed, misunderstood before they were admired. So when you feel out of place, it might not be because something is wrong with you. It might be because you're meant to create a place of your own. Standing out isn't the risk. Suppressing your identity is, and the more you embrace who you are, the easier it becomes to let go of people who only value you when you're convenient, predictable, or small. Some individuals are comfortable around you only when you dim your strengths, silence your opinions, or downplay your achievements. But shrinking yourself to make others feel comfortable is one of the fastest ways to lose yourself. You can't afford that. You weren't born to live a diluted version of your own potential. Sometimes distancing yourself from those who don't appreciate your authenticity is an act of self-respect. It opens space for people who value your truth, not just the parts of you that serve them. Embracing your individuality also means accepting the evolution that comes with growth. You are not obligated to remain the same person you were last year, or even yesterday. People may question your changes, criticize your new direction, or cling to the older version of you because it fits their narrative. But you owe no one a static version of yourself. Growth is not betrayal. Transformation is not arrogance. When you allow yourself to evolve without guilt, you step into deeper alignment with your purpose. And alignment attracts opportunities that imitation never will. One of the greatest freedoms you'll ever experience is the freedom to define success on your own terms. Society often pushes one narrow definition: money, status, validation. But true success feels different for everyone. For some, it's peace. For others, it's impact. For some, it's artistic expression or meaningful connections or becoming a better version of themselves. When you stop chasing what looks successful and start pursuing what feels meaningful, your life begins to make sense in ways it never has before. Authentic goals create authentic fulfillment. And ultimately, embracing your individuality is an ongoing practice, not a destination. There will be days when you feel confident in who you are, and other days when doubt creeps in. There will be moments when standing out feels empowering, and moments when it feels exhausting. But every time you choose to return to your true self, your values, your voice, your vision, you reclaim your power. And with each act of self-acceptance, you rewrite the story of your life in a way only you can. In the end, your journey becomes a testament to the power of authenticity. Not the polished version, not the filtered version, but the real, evolving, imperfect, extraordinary you. When you stop chasing approval and start honoring your truth, life begins to open in ways you never imagined. Doors align, people align, opportunities align, and suddenly the path that once felt confusing becomes clearer with every step you take in your own identity. Remember, the world doesn't need another copy. It needs the one-of-a-kind expression that only you can bring. So walk boldly, speak confidently, dream unapologetically. Keep choosing the version of yourself that feels honest, alive, and aligned with your purpose. Because the greatest transformation you'll ever experience is the moment you decide to stop fitting in and start standing out,